Hey, welcome to the Small Business Made Simple podcast, brought to you by socialmediaandmarketing.com.au. Being in business is never easy, but it can be simple, or at least simpler. Join me, your host Jen Donovan, every week where we focus on marketing, social media, and working towards simplifying your business. You with me? Let's do this.
If you're gonna dream it big, 'cause someone out there listening. Everyone's got a voice to give, and it's time I heard you whistling, 'cause there's no point at all, in dreaming small.
Why, hey there, my fabulous listener. Welcome to episode 247 of the Small Business Made Simple podcast. Thank you, as always, and every week for lending me your ears today. I know you have lots of choices out there, and I really do appreciate you making my podcast one of your choices. If you are enjoying this podcast, though, I would love you to take a screenshot and share it on your socials and tag me, because it's just super cool. I love it when people do this, and I get to follow the person who does it and get to learn a little bit more about their business. And of course, get to follow along the business journey of you as well. So I'd love for you to do that. And even if you've already done it, I'd love for you to do it again. Don't forget any links that I talk about in today's podcast, you can find the show notes. So the show notes, of course, live on my website, which is all the W's, socialmediaandmarketing.com.au/247. Did you get a chance to listen to last week's episode? It was basically my heartfelt plea to small business owners there to show up, to be more present, to be more online for their communities, to allow people to get to know, like, and trust them a little bit more. It was born out of pure frustration, but hopefully the message will get through. You really do need to start showing up online. If you didn't get a chance to listen to that one, then I would love for you to head back there to episode 246 when you finish this one. Or if you know a small business owner who needs a nudge about showing up for their community, showing up for their audience, I would love you to share that episode as well. But today, before I have got a great interview for you. It's one that you're not going to want to miss. It's a little bit outside the box, but I'm stoked to be bringing it to you. But I've got two things just before I get into today's episode. The first one is I'm having an end of financial year sale. Yep. Yay. I'm actually taking $500 off my 6-week mastermind program that's running from Wednesday, the 19th of July to Wednesday, the 30th of August. And I know if you're any good at maths, then you'll think that's 7 weeks, but there is a reason why it's 7 weeks when it's a 6-week program. I promise. I only take 8 people in this mini mastermind program to keep it nice and intimate. And so you can get the most of me and most out of the community that you do it with. The sale of $500 off is only available to the 30th of June. So if you're keen, then go to my website and check that out. If you've got any questions, sing out. But if it's really for you, if you're looking at the back half of 2023 thinking, I need to get my marketing butt into gear, or I need some help with my marketing strategy. 4 spots have already been taken out of the 8. So you can go and check it out at bit.ly. So bit.ly/mastermind with Jen, or just go to socialmediaandmarketing.com.au, click how to work with me, or scroll down a little bit on the front page and you will see it there. Of course, I also need to give a shout out to this week's podcast sponsor, Cloud House Consulting. Imagine working with someone who loves your numbers. Think less stress and 100% support. Think Bronlyn and the team at Cloud House Consulting. Bronlyn from Cloud House Consulting was actually a guest on this podcast way back on episode 158. So head back there if you haven't had a listen to that one. She was talking to me talking to us all about 3 reasons why you need to keep an eye on your numbers. Great evergreen episode, still very relevant today. Um, and it was so good to have Bronwyn on the podcast, because that's really what the team at Cloud House Consulting do. They support you to grow your business. They're the team that you need on hand to master all the basics, but they also cover all the other stuff as well. I do love Bronwyn's ebook titled Kitchen Table Empires, because, hey, so many of us are literally trying to build empires around our kitchen table. If you want to get a hold of that reference guide ebook, which goes through things like GST registration, employment basics, cash flow, and budgeting, then head to Cloud House Consulting to their website, which is basically all the W's.cloudhouse.consulting, and you can find the ebook there. But on to today's episode, and we are talking domains. We are actually talking website domains. So my guest today is Rosemary Sinclair from auDA, which is little a, little u, big D, big A. auDA, as opposed to Audi, or Aldi, the supermarket in the car. This is auDA. And if you've never heard of auDA, then that's probably a good thing. But let me tell you, have been working away for many, many years, quietly in the background, keeping your Australian based website safe. So you mightn't have heard of them, but they've certainly been helping you in your business journey. Rosemary is a highly qualified guest, and we have a great chat. But a little about Rosemary before we start. She has over 25 years' experience as a non executive and managing director, serving on private companies, federal government, international level association boards. She has an extensive senior governance experience and is highly and has worked in highly regulated sectors like telecommunications, media, and higher education. Rosemary is passionate about digital technology and transformation, which you will hear in this interview, and has extensive government and industry networks across the communications, IT, and media sectors. Rosemary is the Chief Executive Officer Women 2022 and was a finalist at the 2018 AFR Qantas Top 100 Women of Influence Awards. She was awarded the AM Order of Australia back in June 2018. So again, you will see why I'm pretty chuffed with a resume like that she's come on my podcast to talk to you and me about domains. I'm going to let Rosemary explain to you what auDA does and how important they are to you and to myself and to anyone else who has a website that ends in .com.au or just .au. So here's my chat. Be ready to be super impressed with Rosemary. Rosemary, I can't tell you how excited I am to have you on the podcast today. You have a really interesting subject for us to talk about, but I'm going to let you say hello to the audience, introduce yourself, and tell us a little bit about yourself, if that's okay.
For sure, Jen. I'm really pleased to have this opportunity to chat with you. The problem is that I really like my subject matter. So you might need to stop me at some stage. So I'm giving you free rein to say, that's fabulous, Rosemary. We need to get on with the conversation. Because what I do as the CEO of auDA, which stands for the .au Domain Administration, is I run that part of the Internet for Australia that really enables people to find the information that they want, to send emails to the people that they want to get in touch with, to offer business products and services to customers from wherever they are all around Australia. So domain names are the bit of the internet that enables all that to happen. And we try to do that really quietly so that nobody ever has to think about whether the domain name system is working properly or securely. And we try to do it really efficiently. So if someone's got a great idea and wants a domain name, they can get that through our registrar channel really, really easily. So that's really the nub of it. We can go on and talk about how we represent Australia's interests in global internet discussions. We can talk about the use of the internet in regional Australia, some fabulous work that we've been doing supporting grants for amazingly innovative uses of the internet. There's all sorts of things we can talk about, but let me stop there before I really get going.
So, Rosemary, how did you get into this? So, my audience may not have ever heard of auDA, and I know previous to pressing the record button, I was saying it's not something that ever come to my mind until 5 or 6 years ago when I started buying up domains, and I guess looking at what that meant and who actually regulated that and that sort of thing. So, where's your history with it? How did you come to be the CEO of auDA?
Well, it's a surprisingly long history when I think about it. I've worked in the telecommunications industry for many, many years and was really privileged to see the rollout in Australia, firstly, of mobile phone services and then secondly of what became broadband services, which of
So
course
were
are
you
the
involved in CDMA? When you
yeah,
had CDMA
I
all
was.
those years ago? Yeah,
I
right.
was. That very important and tricky switch off of CDMA services and moving over to 3G. And in those discussions, the importance of communications to regional and rural communities in particular was very, very clear. And
Mm,
that has just strengthened over the years that I stayed involved. I moved to policy work, but still in the telecommunications world. I then moved into the media world for a time and watched the disruption of the media sector through new technologies like streaming services and indeed
mm,
podcasts, such as
mhm,
we're doing today. I spent a little time in the education sector and same, watched the transformation of that sector because of technologies. A little time in the energy sector, and similarly, that sector is being transformed because of digital technologies. So, when the opportunity to take up the role of CEO of .au Domain Administration, or auDA, came up, I could see the potential to do some really interesting and important work to meet the needs of a really quickly evolving and much more innovative economy. And
mhm.
that's what attracted me to the role. I see my role as running auDA as quietly and efficiently as possible so that nobody needs really to worry about any of that and can just get on with what they actually want to do, which is not worry about what auDA is doing.
Yeah, okay. Goodness, yes, you have had a long history, and I'm sure that you have a book inside you. All the things that you've seen and done and heard, I'm sure you should document at some stage. But for my listener, I just wanted to make a distinction straight up. So recently, and I think as recently as mid to late last year, a new domain of .au became available. So you could drop the .com and you could just have jendonovan.au. So I just want to distinguish for my listener that that's not auDA. That's not the .au that you're talking about. You're talking about the country code that has existed since we started getting websites, as in
Yeah,
.com.au. Can you tell us a little bit more about that or explain that to my
yes,
listener? Yes, just
yes.
so they know the difference.
Yep. So the first thing I want everybody to do is to put a pyramid in their mind. So mind view of the pyramid. And at the top of the pyramid is .au. And that is the country code for Australia. It's like .uk for United Kingdom, .fr for France, .nz for our friends across the ditch.
Yeah.
So in the country code, we have different namespaces. So we have .com within .au, so .com.au for businesses. We have .org.au for organisations, community type organisations, charities, and the like. We've got .net.au as a different sort of offering. Within .au domain, at the top of the pyramid, we've even got .gov.au and
Nice.
.edu.au. So we've
Mhm.
had different types of names within the .au family ever since .au emerged, which was in the late 90s. As we saw the economy evolving to be much more entrepreneurial and innovative, and this was through a process, a long conversation of consultation with stakeholders. It became clear that it was becoming increasingly difficult for people to fit into the rules that governed whether you could get a .com.au name. And there was a need to meet this more innovative entrepreneurial spirit with a new namespace. And we call it .au Direct. And that means that if you're a grown up business and you're registered with ASIC and you're into that degree of formality, you can quite happily meet the requirements for jendonovan.com.au. If you're Jen Donovan and you've just got this wild, mad idea for a podcast for small business across Australia, but you're not yet fully grown up and registered with ASIC, etc., then now you can come and get a domain name, jendonovan.au, and start your business. And we're thinking over time that people might go on a bit of a journey because there is value in a .com.au. Consumers in Australia really trust .com.au names. And so you might, on your journey as a small business owner, get to a point of thinking, well, I do want to register my business and take that next step in formalities. And so I'd like to get the .com.au. But your computer folks can link those two names so that one can point to the other without having to set up whole new websites and the like. So that's how .au as a namespace fits into the big pyramid of .au, the country code.
Yeah, okay. Beautiful. Thank you for distinguishing that. Yes, it's hard on a podcast to make people imagine a pyramid, but I think you did a really good job of that. Yeah, so that's really interesting. I guess these days you can get all sorts of endings, dot online, dot store, dot I think I
Yes.
even saw the other day dot XYZ. Who would want XYZ? But anyway, there was
Yes.
all these different dots. But what is the value of a .com.au? Like, I know you were talking previous to
Yeah.
pressing the record as to, small businesses realizing the value that they have. Can we go down that
Mm.
path?
For sure. And if I can just firstly unpack the names .com, .org, .shu, .bank, as well as country codes, there are what are called generic names. And you can get a .bank in any country in the world, but you can only get a .au if you have a provable connection with Australia. And that has real value because of the preference that Australian consumers and users of websites and emails place on that .au, which is a whole story in and of itself, why that value is there. But I would just like to make the point before I get into the value story, Jen, it's not commonly known, but Australia, the .au, is the 10th largest top-level domain in the world and the
Wow.
7th largest country code domain in the world. So it's the typical story of Australians. When they get a piece of technology that makes a difference and works, then they take it up in great style. And that's what propelled us to being amongst those very top numbers, which is just fantastic for Australia and reflects our approach to innovation and technology. But getting back to the value that is being created by small businesses, one of the things I was saying to you when we were just chatting is that I don't think that Australian small businesses realise that as they work to create value in their businesses by providing great products and services and terrific customer service and meeting the needs of their customers and so on and so forth, they are actually building value also in their domain name. And the domain name is licensed to small businesses, so you have to keep paying the license fee. But if you do, then when you get to a point of wanting to realise value in your business, the value that you've created over many years, I want people to really take a moment to talk with their accountant advisor about what value there might be separately from the chairs, the tables, the stock, the cars and all the rest of it, what value there might be in the domain name. It's important that you keep renewing the domain name so that it's yours, but there's value there. And part of it is the products and services and the customer service, but as well, research that we've done shows quite clearly that Australian consumers reach for a website or email addresses that end in .au first because they know it can be trusted. And we've got global proof that .au is a highly trusted domain and it relates directly to the way we run the domain, the rules that we apply, and the operational practices that we apply. But there's value there because there's trust there, which is, of course, a known business equation, but it applies to domain names as much as anything else.
Yeah, that's yeah, and I think if anyone is listening to that and you watch your own search habits, you know that that is true. Like I know I'm looking for the .au in things, and then when people have a .com and I go to their about page and I still can't work out whether they're Australian or whether they're not Australian, it kind of like I'll just look for someone else, or this person isn't for me type of thing, because I can't work out who they are or what they are
Mm.
type of thing. They haven't been able to build that trust with me. I do that often. I guess maybe more often than most people because of my podcast. I'm always getting, I probably get up to 10 people email me a day asking if they can come on my podcast, and I do
Mhm.
some research on them. It's just like I only take Australian guests at this point. Are you
Mm.
Australian? Are you not Australian? And when
Mm.
they haven't got the .au on the end, then I have to spend some time doing some
Mm.
investigation. So absolutely. Rosemary, you've said a couple of times there at the start that you like to operate quietly so that, people don't necessarily need to know what auDA is, doing or what they're not doing because the system just works. But what
Mhm.
would be a situation where someone would reach out to auDA direct? Like what sort of consumer or business situation would that look like?
A couple of examples that I
Yep.
can think of, and when I say we do our work quietly, our work consists of three main buckets. The first is making sure that .au operates securely, reliably, and stably, so that when people are trying to use the system, it's always there to meet their needs. We have the numbers are quite amazing, but something like 60,000 inquiries to .au websites or emails every minute. It's
Oh,
really a very high level of activity on our system. So we're really concerned about security and stability, number one. The second thing we worry about all the time is compliance with our rules and fair and proportionate administration of the licensing framework. So that's where people can make inquiries of us. They can also go to their registrar, the people who sold them the domain name in the first place. We do a lot of work with our registrars to make sure that they are absolutely up to date with our licensing framework, our rules, our approaches to checking, for example, that someone has a connection to Australia and therefore can get a .au. And then globally, we take part in all the conversations about how the domain name system is run and how it works together, how it's interoperable across all the different types of domains. So someone sitting here in Australia with a .au domain name can get to a website in France or can get to a website in the UK in the blink of an eye is really our preference in terms of speed of getting there. We don't want too many glitches or bumps. But as well as all of that, we want to make sure that people get to the right website, the website they really want, and not a fake or deceptive website. And similarly, we don't want Australian websites being used by criminals or fraudsters to misdirect consumers. So there's a whole body of work called domain name system abuse, and we're on the front foot in terms of trying to prevent that sort of abuse. We've got one of the very lowest levels in the world of domain name abuse, and so we work with law enforcement agencies and government agencies to protect Australian consumers from bad behaviour and bad actors.
Okay. That's really interesting. That's 4 very big pillars to sort of be covering for sure.
Mm.
That was a really interesting point you brought up about security. Is there anything a small business owner could be doing to keep their domains that they're paying for every year more secure or at a good security level?
Yeah, there are, and I think of them in four factors, and this is not rocket science. For all the important security nerds that there are, Jen, keeping us all safe at the Australian Cybersecurity Centre and the Australian Signals Directorate and in other places, and those folks are working really hard down at the individual level, and this applies to auDA as a small business, so it applies to everybody else. There are four things you can do. You can make sure that people are using and being really careful of passwords. The latest development there is to use a passphrase, so some little sentence that is meaningful to you that will be harder to crack for anybody else. And when people say you need to have a 20-character password, ordinary people like me go, I'll never remember 20 characters. But if my 20 characters are the ocean is blue hashtag, then I can remember that. But at 20 characters, it's much harder for someone else to figure it out. So that's what we mean by passphrases. So that's number one. Second thing is to find some training or materials for people to read and train your people. So at auDA, we do a monthly 2.5 minute sessions. It's not very long, not very time consuming, but it really gets the message across to all of us, including me, about how terrible it would be if someone hacked into our website and caused damage to our reputation or our customers, or if we inadvertently gave away information by responding to, what might look like legitimate requests, from the CEO to transfer money to pay this bill urgently. Anything like that, just pause and think, really, would that be going on? So training people is the next one. Third one involves working with your IT people to make sure that your systems, the software systems that you're using, are up to date, because any little out of date element of software can be used by bad actors to worm their way into a website and then present a legitimate website to the world for illegitimate purposes. So staying up to date with software is really important. And every time an IT person comes to, fix a computer or do anything, just get them to check that all of your systems are the latest up-to-date systems, because all of the systems are adding on security elements to deal with the kind of world that we're in. And the last thing is to make sure that all your partners, your third-party providers, are being as careful about security as you are being about security. Because if you're, working closely with someone who's not taking care of passwords, people, and patching, then they can be the back door into your systems. So those are the four things: passwords, people, patching, and third parties. And anyone can think about those things. It's, as I said, it's not rocket science. It's not frightening. Sometimes I find the jargon that our computer whizzes use, it's frightening. You think, I can't understand that, and therefore I'm not going to do anything about it. But, thinking about it the way I've described it, anyone who's running a small business is more than capable of dealing with those four elements.
Yeah, great. Thank you for all those tips. Rosemary, this has been such a great conversation, and I've still got so many things I'd like to ask you. But two things just before we finish up, if that's okay. auDA has a membership program. Can you tell us a little bit about that in case someone, my listener, is interested in knowing a little bit more about that?
Yeah. And the first thing I'm going to say, Jen, is it's complimentary. It's absolutely free to be a member of auDA. And there's a very good reason for that. We're supposed to be doing what we do every day for the benefit of Australians. And so it's really important for us to understand what Australians think might be in their benefit, and for us to stay really close to our stakeholders. And our membership program is one way of doing that. So we provide a lot of information to our members. There would be cybersecurity tips. There would be opportunities to come to webinars. There's weekly newsletters. There's a range of simple, easy to access information that can help anybody with a domain name. We ask our members to let us know what they think about particular things that we're consulting on, issues that we think are important. We ask our members every couple of years what they think about what we're doing and is there anything else we could do to help people. And of course, our members have a very important role formally at our AGM in terms of electing directors and telling us what they think about how we've been going. We've got a very high degree of transparency about the way we run .au because we're running it for the benefit of Australians. So just go to auda.org.au and you'll find information about membership. As I say, it's completely complimentary. We just love people to join in our work and be part of what we're doing on their behalf.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. And the other thing that you mentioned at the very start that I just wanted to dive a little bit deeper, I'm not sure how deep you can go, but you mentioned that you were doing some really innovative things, supporting some innovative people through grants and things like that. What can you tell me a little bit about that without perhaps giving away someone's IP of what they're up to? But yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a program we run that was started some years ago under the auDA Foundation. We now call it the auDA Community Grants Program. And we go out around about August, September each year and let everybody know that we've got the capacity for 15 grants of $40,000. And we're interested in grassroots ideas about what people could do with that money to innovate with the internet or to develop some useful application of the internet. And so we have funded such interesting work. One piece of work that we're particularly proud of, although our contribution was limited in that sense to $40,000, was the Council of Small Business Organisations of Australia have been doing some work on what they call a cyber wardens program. And what they're saying is everybody knows about fire wardens and most people have got one or know where to get one. And, you know, that's all set up in people's minds. The issue of the moment is cybersecurity. So let's help everybody to become aware and to put in place cyber wardens in their businesses. So we funded a little pilot with our $40,000 for COSBOA to do that work. That turned itself, Jen, into $24.5 million worth of funding from the federal government to expand and develop that program of cyber wardens to help small business. So that's one that we're very proud of. Just one more example, if you might indulge me, way down at the community end of things. Last year, we funded a program to use the internet to provide information for people with disabilities about where there are accessible beaches. And I just particularly love this program because it's a relatively simple use of the internet, but it enables that experience that is so Australian of being able to get down to the beach and, you know, be in the sand or in the water, whatever the circumstances might be. But it deals with that terrible problem of you get to the car park and then everyone else can get down to the beach, but the person with the disability is stuck in the car park. And I just think it's the most magic example of where we can use the internet to create opportunities and experience and equity for all Australians. And that's what we're on about, the internet for the benefit of all Australians. So that's
I
just
love that.
apples.
I
Yeah, it's
love
great.
that someone obviously see a problem, solve a problem. That must have been something that they've either seen or were experiencing themselves or within
Yeah.
friends or family, and they have gone for a solution. That's a brilliant example. I love that. Thank
Mm,
you for sharing that. That's
yeah.
brilliant. And I'm sure that my listener is now ticking over thinking, oh, I must go and have a look at what that beach site is or go and have a look for that. Brilliant. Well, Rosemary, is there anything we haven't touched on that you would like to touch on before we close up today?
I think with your clever questioning, Jen, we've managed to weave our way through all the things that I thought Australians, your listeners, might be interested in understanding about .au and auDA. I guess I'd just like to reassure people that we will just keep going. We'll be running .au quietly, securely, stably. We'll be supporting our registrars and administering the licensing framework equitably and fairly. We'll be having our voice in the international debates, and we'll be really staying in touch with our members to understand the needs of Australians and to try to respond through our own innovation so that .au remains really contemporary and relevant to what Australians are trying to do on the internet.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. And I will link to the auDA website on in the show notes and any socials you might have as well, so people can kind of that out and go and follow along. And maybe even, I would encourage people to go and have a look at the membership program as well, because I don't know many small business owners who don't want to know more about how to keep themselves safe from. Because cybersecurity, like you say, is a really, really top of mind topic at the moment for lots of small business owners. Rosemary, thank you so much for coming on. You've been a wealth of information, and yeah, I've been very curious about
Mm.
auDA. So yeah, really grateful that you came on and gave me your time today.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Jen, and perhaps we'll get together again down the track when there are new and interesting things to talk about.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. I really hope you enjoyed that interview and found it interesting. I found it just so interesting. I had not heard of auDA until I did some digging a few years back, and I really do feel it's exactly what Rosemary says. They work quietly in the background, keeping us happy and us safe. But they need a bit of limelight shone on them, hence me doing this podcast episode today. I would highly recommend that you become a member of auDA. It's actually a free membership, and the link, of course, is in the show notes. But you can basically just go to auda.org.au. So that's auda.org.au and hit become a member. And of course, you will see it there. If you've got any questions or queries, then get in touch. You can head to my Facebook group, Like Minded Business Owners, or you can email me. DM me on Instagram, LinkedIn. You can send me a carrier pigeon, whatever you would like to do. But I would love to hear from you, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on auDA and, of course, everything Rosemary had to say. But that's basically it for episode 247. If you love this episode, then I would love for you to leave me a rating and review if that's possible where you are listening to it. But I will see you next week for episode 248. Thanks again to Cloud House Consulting for sponsoring today's episode. Don't forget about their ebook. That is a great reference guide on everything to do with business, including GST registration, employment basics, cash flow, and budgeting. You can find it all on their website at all the W's, cloudhouse.consulting. And if you are keen to join my 6-week marketing program, then you might like to head to my website and have a look at all the T's and C's and learn a little bit more about it. But basically, if you want to get your focus back on your marketing and get yourself an implementable marketing strategy for the last half of 2023, then this course is for you. The link, of course, is in the show notes. But in the meantime, let's get social on social. You'll find me on Instagram, Facebook, and of course, LinkedIn. But whatever you do, remember, my small business peep, as my opening song says, there is no point in dreaming small.
No time like the present. Tell it like you feel it, say it proud, be true, and let us see you for the star that you are. No point in dreaming small.
I I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the auDA people, on which I record this podcast and conduct my business today, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I extend this respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here with us today as well.